Good morning. So this video is going to be called Why We Can't Disagree and Still Be Friends. This is kind of the first political video that I'm making because I'm concerned about the political climate in this country with the election of Donald Trump, given that he tried to overturn the 2020 election in this country and effectively nullify my right to vote. So I'm going to point out some of the reasons that I think that's true rather than rehash. I have a lot of conversations with my friends and family about the reasons that I think Trump obviously tried to overturn an election, and rather than rehash all these points, I'm going to make a video and I'm going to give you my sources, give you my links, and you can look them up and decide for yourself. But at this point, my stance is that Trump tried to overturn one of the most fundamental, cherished freedoms that the world has ever seen in the nonviolent transfer of power, which we didn't have in 2020 because of him. For the following reasons, let's dive in. First thing we're going to look at is the John Eastman memo. John Eastman is Trump's lawyer who circulated a memo about how to replace electoral slates in 7 states with electoral slates that would name Trump president. And right off the bat, I just want you to differentiate between the scheme and how they followed this scheme. So here's the plan, and then later on I'm going to show you how they convened sham proceedings in order to try to fake legitimacy for Trump's electoral slates in 2020 in violation of the Electoral Count Act. All right, so first off, it's good to put a face to a name, you know? So I just want to show you a picture of John Eastman. Here he is. There he is, Indiana Eastman. This is John Eastman and Rudy Giuliani on January 6th giving a speech before Trump's speech. We might look a little bit into the transcript of Trump's speech on January 6th as well. But anyway, that's John Eastman. This is also John Eastman. I just want to give you a sense of how he's doing today. So this is also John Eastman. California judge recommends disbarment of pro-Trump attorney John Eastman. Let's read a little bit. Eastman's wrongdoing constitutes exceptionally serious ethical violations warranting severe professional discipline, wrote California State Bar Court Judge Yvette Rowland in her decision. Eastman made multiple patently false and misleading statements in court filings and public remarks heard by countless Americans and to others regarding the conduct of the 2020 presidential election and Vice President Pence's authority to refuse to count or delay counting properly certified slates of electoral votes on January 6, 2021. I think it's helpful to look at Trump's transcript. Trump January 6 speech transcript. This is also going to be on NPR. I think it's good to look at this language just to show the through line that this was a scheme that they came up with and then they followed the scheme. I mean, this is, I think the memo started being circulated like 3 months or so before the election. And here is Trump on January 6 using language from the speech. We're going to look for lawful. There it is. Lawfully. And he's saying, because you'll never take back our country with weakness, you have to show strength and you have to be strong. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated. All right. And a rule of thumb for Trump is if he's telling you something, you can just believe the opposite. All right. His slates were not lawfully slated. And I'm going to show you why. I'm not just going to tell you. All right. I got receipts. So that's John Eastman. Here he is with Rudy Giuliani, another one of the co-conspirators from something called the Jack Smith indictment transcript. These are 1 or 2. These are co-conspirators 1 or 2. So if you read that, follow up with that. I'm going to link it below. You can know that these 2 star in that indictment. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to read a little bit of the Eastman memo. And I like to read it I like Wikipedia. I'm fine with it. Eastman memo. We're going to read point 2 and 3. When he gets to Arizona, he announces that he has multiple slates of electors, and so is going to defer decision on that until finishing the other states. This would be the first break with the procedure set out in the act. All right, so there's 2 potential points of confusion there if you're not familiar. when point 2 says when he gets to Arizona, this is talking about Mike Pence opening electoral slates and declaring them for Joe Biden in the 2020 election. But he's saying that when he gets to Arizona, he announces that he has multiple slates of electors. Just ask yourself real quick, why are there multiple slates of electors? What reason could there be? Is that normal? In what way did they come to have these multiple slates of electors? Do they have multiple slates of electors? Were they able to pull it off? I'm going to show you that in some cases they were, in some cases they were not. The second point of potential confusion here is this would be a break with the procedure set out in the act. The act that he's referring to here is the Electoral Count Act. Point 3, we're just laying the groundwork, all right? I just want you to pay attention to all these things. We got the Electoral Count Act, we got multiple slates of electors, we have Arizona so far, we're going to get to Michigan, and you're going to find that there's going to be 7 states where Trump tried to replace electoral slates, all right? At the end, he announces that because of the ongoing disputes in the 7 states, there are no electors that can be deemed validly appointed in those states. Pause there. Ongoing disputes in the 7 states. By the time of January 6th, there were no ongoing disputes in the 7 states. Trump had tried to get the 7 states to convene their legislatures and accept his electoral slates by virtue of him saying that there was election rigging. You know, you remember Trump for years in the lead up to the election was trying to gaslight the public about there being a bunch of election fraud. They're going to rig the election. There's going to be so much election rigging. And this guy was in on that too. He parroted a lot of Trump's election lies. And he was at the forefront in lying about Ruby Freeman and Shaye Moss. I don't know if you remember them, but Ruby and Freeman and Shaye Moss were 2 election workers. And Giuliani said that they were passing a USB stick back and forth as if it was illicit drugs, and that they were rigging the election. Giuliani was sued, and I think he had to pay something like $150 million, and he is disbarred now. And John Eastman is either disbarred or being disbarred. So they lost those disputes. You can also read more about it. There's a bunch of litigation. There's a bunch of court cases, and Trump lost almost every single one of them. There's like one inconsequential one in Pennsylvania that he won because of standing or something like that. But it wasn't substantive. All right. Because of the ongoing disputes in the 7 states, there are no electors that can be deemed validly appointed in those states. That means the total number of electors appointed, the language of the 12th Amendment, is 454. This reading of the 12th Amendment has also been advanced by Harvard Law professor Lawrence Tribe. A majority of the electors appointed would therefore be 228. There are at this point 232 votes for Trump, 222 votes for Biden. Pence then gavels President Trump as reelected. All right, so put a staple there. This is when Pence comes into it. And what I'm going to show you is that this failed. All right, the ongoing disputes in the 7 states failed. And that's why Trump went so hard on Pence on January 6th. He tried to get the states to go along with his electoral slates. He couldn't do it. There's other facts you can look up too in the Jack Smith indictment. You should read that. It's a really good read. Talks about how Trump's Attorney General Bill Barr refused to send a letter on behalf of the DOJ to state legislatures lying about election rigging for Trump, and he resigned. And then Jeffrey Rosen, the next Attorney General, also refused to do that, and Trump threatened to replace Jeffrey Rosen with Jeffrey Clark, but the DOJ threatened mass resignations, and so Trump had to drop that part of the Eastman scheme. And that's why he went so hard on Pence. That part failed. He turns to Pence. Pence also refuses. Trump throws him under the bus, tweets that he didn't have the courage to do what he needed to do, and then told everyone to go to the Capitol. They rioted. And then what I'm also going to show you, or what you can read in the Jack Smith indictment, is that Trump sat around for 3 hours knowing that the riot had become violent and refused to call them off. He refused to call them off. I had a recent conversation with a friend, one of the friends in question, who said that, once a riot gets that far gone, what can you really do? I mean, could Trump really have called it off? But the point is that he did. He eventually did. He waited around for 3 hours, and then he called it off. You remember that video where he's like, "You're very wonderful people. You're special people. We love you. Go home." And they went home, all right? So he could have done something. Also, at the time, all of his staff and even his children were trying to get him to call it off, and he refused to do so. He sent out a tweet or something to be peaceful, even though he knew they weren't being peaceful. It's ridiculous. So anyway, just take a second, let your brain marinate on those things, on those pieces, right? We got the 7 states, we got the fake electors, we got Pence, all right, we got Arizona, one of the swing states. Eastman memo. All right. So there's the scheme, and I'm going to show you one of the sources where it shows that this scheme was enacted fraudulently. All right. What this video is going to show you is people coming to the Michigan Capitol trying to portray themselves as electors for Trump. And they weren't able to get in. And again, you can read all about this in the the Jack Smith indictment.
So you're telling us we can't enter? Yeah. Okay, would you say that on the record?
It's a little quiet right now. In a second, this cop's going to come up and he's going to tell them to leave.
What did he say? He said we can't enter.
What I said was, for the Capitol Commission, for the governor's office, for the Speaker of the House, for the Speaker of the Senate, the Capitol is closed unless you have an office here to conduct business today, or if you are taking part in the Electoral College process. Anybody else is not permitted to come in.
They're here to...
Yeah, the electors are already here, they've been checked in.
They're also elected.
He said the electors are here, they've been checked in. They're already here. You're not it.
Capitol is closed. All 16 electors that we've been advised by the governor's staff that we're going to be here to vote in the Electoral College have been checked in, they're already here.
But these are the rest of the electors.
I understand.
These are the rest of the electors. These are all alternative electors. These are, you can actually, what I would really like to do, I didn't have enough time to put this together, but I wanted to find the actual signed electoral slates, because you can find the signatures of like the fake electoral slates, some of them which have been prosecuted for penning their names. But like this lady, maybe even, and some of the other people in this crowd, they were told that their signatures were only going to be used, like their electoral slates would only be used if their litigation was successful in those 7 swing states that Trump lost. They said, hey, we want you to be an elector for Trump, and we're only going to use these electors if our litigation is successful in the 7 states, if we can get them on board. Like I said before, remember, they weren't successful. That part of the Eastman scheme to get state legislatures on board failed. You can actually find tweets and stuff from Trump throwing election officials and government officials in those other states under the bus, saying things like, hey, with Republicans like these, who needs liberals and stuff like that. I think in Michigan, even he tweeted out about one of the government officials, and somebody showed up at his house with a gun and was screaming his daughter was home. It's like, it's so gross. This lady doesn't know what's going on, though. That's the thing. Is like, even she showed up at the Capitol in Michigan, and she doesn't know what's going on. She thinks, oh, we're just the other electors, because that's what they've been told, that this is fine. You're other electors. You can just show up, and outside of the normal avenues, none of this is up and up. You know, this is all the wrong way to do this, and that's what the cop is kind of trying to explain. He's like, you can call the governor, you can go do this, call this person, do this. I'm not the person. I'm like, I can't let you in and do this. This is not the way that our state runs. This is not the way anything runs.
The Capitol is closed. Everybody's permitted to come forward.
Captain, the electors are also, the GOP electors are also on the governor's certificate of ascertainment.
I'm not going to get into a political debate. I'm following
It's not a
orders.
political debate.
Okay.
It's the official sealed document. The certificate of ascertainment has also the GOP electors. They are here. They're trying to do their constitutional duty.
I understand.
And their constitutional duty requires them to be at the Senate chamber today at 2 p.m.
Okay.
They're here.
All right, they're not. I understand they're not being permitted in. If you have a problem, you can contact the governor's office, the Speaker of the House, the Senate Majority Leader, or the
I saw
Capitol
the governor's
Commission.
press release this morning. It said due to COVID. Is that the reason being given?
No,
All right, that was what the press release said. Is there another reason why?
you'd have to ask the governor's office to answer that question. I don't have.
We
any
have a
knowledge.
copy of paper.
This is a cop knows everything. You know, he's just like one of those guys that's been working there for so long, and he knows exactly what you're going to say before you even say it. Like, I guarantee this guy like knows all the steps that this guy's like trying to cope hard and get him to accept him in there. But anyway, so they're not going through the normal avenues. They've been told to show up and cast these votes for Trump, and that they're going to use these electoral slates only if their litigation is successful. That wasn't true. They end up using them anyway. They tried to pass them off to Pence, which I'm going to show you right now, when Ron Johnson tried to get one of his aides to pass off electoral slates to one of Pence's aides. There it is. All right. Ron Johnson tried to hand fake elector info to Mike Pence on January 6th, panel reveals. So this says, the aide, Sean Riley, told Pence's legislative director, Chris Hodgson. So Ron Johnson's aide, Sean Riley, told Pence's legislative director, Chris Hodgson, that Johnson wanted to hand Pence lists of the fake electors from Michigan and Wisconsin for Pence to introduce during the counting of the electoral votes. You just saw, though, they weren't let into the Michigan Capitol. They were turned away. These are not actual electoral slates. They weren't able to get this done. Michigan and Wisconsin for Pence to introduce during the counting of the electoral votes that certified Joe Biden's win. The attempt was revealed in text messages obtained by the January 6th Select Committee during its fourth public hearing on Tuesday. Hodgson said, do not give that to him. Do not pass that off to him. All right? Hodgson, like the cop, is saying, this is not the normal avenue. Like, this is bad news. This is illegal. And everyone looking at this should conclude that this is really bad news. This is shady stuff. This is not the way that this country works. All right, we have state legislatures. Their rights are supposed to be expected as per the Electoral Count Act. You can't just go to a Capitol building and cast votes for somebody and try to use those electoral slates when they didn't win the popular vote. Like, it's crazy to me that Trump would even try to like get away with this when he lost the popular vote. He lost the vote in Michigan. And I guess what he's trying to do is say that, oh, look, the popular vote in Michigan showed that Biden won, but look, the electors voted for me. Like, he's just expecting all of them to be faithless electors and vote for him, even though the state went to Biden. And I think what he was going to try to do there was say, like, look, the vote in those states is fraudulent, because he just lies about things being fraudulent. He doesn't care. And if you voted for Trump, that's who you're voting for. You're voting for someone unscrupulous who's going to lie and gaslight people and try to violate the Electoral Count Act, has no regard for the Constitution. I just want to show you a quick thing. Truth. Am I going to be able to find it? Is this it? This is it. All right. A lot of people don't know about this stuff. All right, so with the revelation of Massive, this is in 2022. All right, this is after the Twitter file stuff. So with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception, and working closely with big tech companies, this is the same MO. This is the same thing he's trying to do. He tried to do with Bill Barr. He's trying to get him to send a letter to states saying, "Oh, look at all this fraud. It's so widespread. It's so huge. There's so much election rigging." Which he didn't find in 2024, by the way, because he won. The DNC and the Democrat Party, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. It is insane that Trump has been elected and is going to be allowed to swear another oath to the Constitution after he already tried to betray it in trying to overthrow the constitutionally protected electoral process in this country. All right. So there we go. Just to recap, John Eastman, Trump's lawyer, Eastman memo, Eastman scheme to replace electoral slates. The way that they followed it was by having sham proceedings to fake legitimacy for Trump's electoral slates. It wasn't legitimate. They had sham proceedings. You can actually read more about that in the Jack Smith indictment, link below. They tried to pass hands. They tried to pass these off to people where they weren't qualified. They weren't certified to be able to pass these off. There's some other, I can't remember some of the other instances, some of the other times where they tried to get other aides to just pass off these electoral slates, and the people were like, I don't know who you are. Why are you handing me this? It would be like somebody showing up to your job and being like, hey, I'm here to take over your shift. And you're like, oh my gosh, were you hired? Do you work here? wait, like, did Debbie put you on the schedule? And then you check the schedule and they're not on the schedule. And you're like, I don't know who you are. And they're like, well, I'm still here to take over your shift. And you're like, get out of here, dude. I don't even, it's wild. All right. Jack Smith indictment transcript. I'm just going to show you this because it's one of the things that people don't really know. And I'm sick of hearing people lie about how cops let the January 6th rioters into the Capitol and the way that people do this kind of cringe cope in this country when this delayed the election certification of my country. Okay. Trump told these people to go to the Capitol. We're going to spend a little bit of time on this because I also want to show you about how they had weapons there. A lot of people said that they didn't have guns, but I'm going to show you a video. Actually, I'm going to dark matter 25 about a guy who did have a gun. I think that's it. All right. But first, I'm going to show you this. Just to dispel any sense of people trying to say, oh, the cops just let them in and showed them around on the day of election certification, because that's what you do. Oh, look, there's a mob outside. Let's let him in to disrupt our proceedings.
Proud Boys start fighting the police, and with others in the mob, they push through the line. Over several minutes, it's a brutal fight on these steps. At one point, the rioters are held back. But they make a final push up the flight of stairs. At the top, they scuffle again with a small group of officers, who give in after barely a minute.
Stop following orders! Stop! You know we're right!
The mob now has direct access to Capitol entrances.
I can't believe this is reality. We accomplished this shit.
And hundreds more protesters below surge forward.
They're about to break in.
It's utter mayhem, and it's about to get worse. The scene is being filmed from countless angles, allowing us to piece together, moment by moment, what comes next. Proud Boy Dominic Pizzola uses a police shield he
He wasn't
stole
wearing
to
his
bash
mask.
in a window.
Just pointing out, as a good liberal, he didn't have his mask on. Just blows nose.
And at 2:13 p.m., the Capitol is breached.
All right, is that where the cops just like let them in? Was that where the police let them in? They're like, or are you like, oh no, I didn't say the police let them in. I said a police riot shield let them in. Okay, it was a police riot shield. It opened the window for them, and that's how you come in. It's a tradition in this country where on the day of election certification, you storm the Capitol, and the cops just let you in through the window. That's because it's just kind of fun. It's kind of a fun thing, you know, apple pie on the windowsill, coming in through the window, breaking in. That's just how we do it in this country. It's a little weird and stuff, but I wouldn't expect you to understand the values and principles that we hold dear in this country, and that's one of them. All right, so they broke in. Here's a guy shooting a gun into the air at the Capitol.
What was the reaction
Oop,
at the
back
time?
up a little bit.
Listen to the video.
Boom, boom. No guns at the Capitol, though. All right. We're winding up. That's pretty much it. These are all the biggest points. These are some of the points that people miss. All right. You got the scheme, but the way that they followed the scheme was with sham proceedings, and like I showed you, they tried to use electoral slates from Michigan, even though Michigan, they weren't able to get into the Capitol and even cast their votes for Trump, you know, in order to come up with even a fake. It wouldn't even have been legitimate if they had followed through with that, all right? Because they're not ascertained as per the Electoral Count Act. You can kind of hear some of that language, and the guy that was arguing with the cop, the guy that was wearing his mask, you know, he was saying like, these have been ascertained, you know. That's some of the language from the Electoral Count Act, is that way things are properly ascertained. They had sham proceedings. They tried to pass them off fraudulently. Pence's aide said no, and we all remember the Capitol attack. And remember Pence, all right? This is what I want you to hold in your mind. I want you to remember how Pence hid in the Capitol and refused to flee because he didn't want the rest of the world to see the example that was going to be set in this country, that democracy was under attack by the sitting president who was sitting around for 3 hours watching the Capitol riot, all right? That's what you don't know. All this stuff adds up to an insurrection. It's using coercion and intimidation to successfully delay an election certification process in this country, an attempt for Trump to name himself president just by being voted out, all right? So that's why we can't be friends, all right? If you look at all this stuff, think about it, take it in, do your own research, look up the Jack Smith indictment, link below. So if you look at all this and if you don't accept it, fine. I mean, cope, but if you're going to engage in that kind of willful ignorance and self-deception, we can't be friends, all right? These are fundamental, basic American principles that ensure my freedom to vote, that Trump tried to overturn. You voted for him. All right, we're going to see where the country goes, but if you look at all this stuff and you accept it and you still support Trump, you're a traitor. Trump is a traitor and an insurrectionist who tried to overthrow an election as a sitting president. And all right, there's all my points. Bye.